Students, today I will explain the chapter in history, chapter 1, modern period. I have explained this in the previous classes, but still I explain it again. And the chapter is modern period. The word modern means that period of history that you live in, but it has been used by the Indian historians to describe those events and those styles of administration, art, architecture, etc. But that have developed during the late 18th, 19th and 20th century. So the modern history of India covers mainly some events and development. Whose are they? First is establishment of power of East India Company. Second is the British administrative system. Third is their economic and revenue policies that growing the Indian trade and handicrafts as well and started the process of industrialization. Third is the Great Uprising of 1857 that is called the First War of Independence. Next is the new education system, and the next is socio-religious reform movement in India, and the next is the factor promoting nationalism and the Indian national movement and the freedom struggle. So, dates in history are linked to events. For some events, for example, battles, specific dates can be assigned. Periodization in history has changed over time. So we divide the history into periods on the basis of something which had a profound impact on the way we live. Time in history. A span of time is more important in history rather than a precise date. History that was taught a few decades ago was all political history. It is easier to define dates for the event in political history, but social, economic and cultural history, specific dates cannot be assigned. Interpretation in history. Interpretation differs in history as well as individuals and group interprets the events differently. Let's take an example. The British wanted to downplay the popular nature of revolt 1857, so they termed it as a spy mutiny. But the masses, they said, they were left untouched by the sequences of events. Indian historians, however, treat it differently. Contemporary records and support them. So they tell us that the common people played a vital part in the event, and real reason for this uprising was the exploitative nature of British. So there are generally differing opinions and interpretations in history. Let's talk about the resources. First, there is no dearth of sources for the modern period, just as Asian and medieval period. In fact, there is abundance of it. One reason for this is that the British believed that the act of recording was very important. Every instructions, plan, policies, decisions, agreements, investigations had to be clearly written down for two reasons. What were those two reasons? Firstly, things could be properly studied and debated, and second is it left no scope for the ambiguity or confusion. First, let's talk about the literary sources. Literary sources for the period are many and varied. There are original documents like government reports, administrative records, official records of the British Survey, and so on. So all these records have been carefully preserved in archives and museums. Archaeological remains such as monuments, artifacts form part of the archaeological survey. They are scattered in different parts of the country. Their examples are India Gate, Taj Mahal, Parliament House. Let's talk about the official records. In official records, British believed in keeping a record of all their official documents, plans and policies. A number of important documents written by British officials and their correspondence with prominent Indians were stored in record rooms that were attached to all government institutions, such as collectorates, secretariats, law courts, etc. But later on, the documents were stored in archives and museums. A number of such documents are now preserved in the National Archives of India. They are a valuable source of information about the British, their policies and their rules. Now, survey records. From the early 19th century, the British conducted many detailed surveys: geographical, anthropological, archaeological, botanical, zoological, forest survey, and so on, which tell us about the people living in the country at the time. For example, when the British conducted a revenue survey in villages, they not only found out about the topography, soil, quality, flora, fauna of the region, but also local histories and the cropping patterns. From the end of the 19th century AD, they also began conducting regular census every 10 years. Now, indigenous sources. Diaries, accounts of pilgrims and travelers, newspaper, books, novels, leaflets reflect the feeling of the Indian under British rule.